So we'll just start with basic. What is your name, date of birth, and where were you born?
My name is Samika Sullivan. My date of birth is July 23rd, 1977. Don't everybody fall out. And I was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, so you weren't born in Niagara Falls.
I was not. My mother moved here when I was 1 year old.
Okay. And how long have you been in Niagara Falls? Like, have you been here your whole life?
I've been here for the majority of my life. So my mom moved back and forth between Cleveland a lot when I was, younger. But I, hands down, spent the majority of my life here in Niagara Falls.
Okay.
At 17, I moved to New York City to go to NYU. And then I stayed there for 7 years. And then I came back home. So I've pretty much been here since.
Okay. Why did you decide to leave New York City to come back to Niagara Falls?
A few reasons. One is I believe God is a comedian, right?
Okay.
Because I swear I was never ever coming back to this place. Ever. I had my butt on my shoulders, I guess they say. But I had come home for a visit one time, and my father owned a bar. So my parents owned a bar for my entire life. And the bar had closed down because they said he wasn't paying taxes.
Okay.
And so my parents had a very solid system. My dad did all like the bank runs and such. My mom wrote out all the checks and paid all the bills. And then she discovered that he had been taking the tax checks and just putting them in a drawer for no particular reason.
Okay.
Until one day the people showed up and they put padlocks on the door, and we were like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so for us, we understood that was sort of the beginning of dementia for my dad. My father was one of 8 children, 7 children, one of 7 children, and all of his siblings had dementia. So we literally watched every single one go from, Aunt so-and-so or Uncle so-and-so to, they had no idea who we were. Mm-hmm. And so that was sort of the beginning stages of my father, of us realizing that he had dementia. So it bothered me a lot, and I knew that the time would come sooner than later where he wouldn't know who I was. He wouldn't recognize me. And I wanted to be able to spend as much time with him as I could before that happened.
Okay.
And so I just told myself, New York City's not going anywhere. I don't think. I think it'll be around for a while. So that brought me back. While in New York City, I was working with children in the prison system. Mm-hmm. And what I saw was a lot of kids who were the kids who got in trouble at school, or the kids who got in trouble in their neighborhood. And so they ended up in this place. Rikers Island was not a place anybody wanted to end up, right?
Yeah.
And so my little sister was kind of going through her little teen rebellion stuff as well. And so my mother kept saying, I'm going to put her away, I'm going to put her in a home, and, stuff like that. Because, I don't know, my mother kind of made us believe that she could just call a number and people would come and take us away. But I remember saying to my mom, please don't put her anywhere. I said, the kids that I'm dealing with now are all kids who were put away.
Yeah.
It didn't make them better people.
Yeah.
And she says, well, since you know so much, then you come back and you take care of her. And I said, okay, I will. And so between my sister and my dad, I packed it up and moved back home.
Okay. All right. You did receive higher education then. You said you went to NYU and
I
completed your degree.
I did.
What did you get your degree in?
So I had an individualized major, which meant that I could create it. So eventually my individualized major was in psychology and Africana studies.
Okay.
So it was a study of the entire African diaspora.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you think that your degree in that helped you in the position that you have now?
Absolutely. I think that any college that does not allow an individualized degree is really doing a disservice to its students. Mm-hmm. So I got into this program. It's called Gallatin. It was the Gallatin School for Individualized Study. I didn't know what it meant. I was just excited to go to NYU, right? I didn't know the difference. They called me and gave me an interview. I'm like, oh, you'd be perfect for this. I'm like, okay, cool. So all of my roommates, they all had a book of prerequisites. You had to take this class and then this class. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't have that. I could go through the book and I could take any class that I found interesting.
Oh, that's really nice.
So I could take classes in the College of Arts and Sciences, the School of Education, the Business School, mm-hmm. The Theater School. So I could, mix it around a bit. And I remember graduating and thinking, I just spent a whole lot of money and a whole lot of time learning everything,
Yeah.
but nothing specifically. So where do I work?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
just having that notion. But I kid you not, I must have changed my concentration because you didn't have a major, you had a concentration.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed my concentration every semester. Every semester I go to my mentor and she'd be like, oh, do you still want to be a sex therapist? And I was like, I wanted to do that. She's like, you don't remember? What I did know was that I wanted to help people. I just didn't know how. I had people, I was a teen mom, so I had people who helped me a lot, and I had people who hurt me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just didn't want to ever be one of those people who hurt other people with their words or their actions or lack of actions. And so I had it on both sides with helpers.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted to help people. I just didn't really know in what way. So there was some physical therapy in my schedule, and some occupational therapy, some music therapy, and sex therapy, and you name it. I was going to therapy some damn body. Somehow.
You were going to heal someone.
Somebody's going to get some healing there. And so when it was all said and done, we had to do a colloquium. We had to have 25 books, and we had to use those 25 books to as our platform for why we deserve a degree in whatever we individualized.
Okay.
It was very, very challenging. You had to sit with 5 of the toughest professors for 3 hours. You had to go through all of these 25 books and say, okay, here's why this and this makes sense together. Mm-hmm. And then you go out and wait for them to tell you if you're graduating or not. Like it literally
sounds so stressful. Oh my gosh, my hands just got
It
sweaty.
absolutely was. Mine are sweaty and I'm done with it. But it was really one of those things that really made you test. Well, did you learn anything here?
Yeah.
You know, was this a waste of 4 years? You know, I can remember my friends, like when it was time to pick classes, they'd be done in 5 minutes because they were studying communication, so they had to follow this communications track. There was no wavering.
Yeah.
And I take hours because I'm looking through everything like, this looks so cool, this looks so awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that because it has made my worldview a lot bigger.
Yeah.
I can walk into rooms and I can have conversations about a variety of different things because I wasn't just pigeonholed into that one space.
Yeah.
My first job out of college was at Rikers Island, and you know it wasn't an unfamiliar environment for me, and the people weren't unfamiliar. But when I moved back home, I worked in mental health, and so I worked with different classes of people. I worked with very wealthy people. I worked with the poorest of poor people, and so to have a wide range of things that I could talk about was an asset in every household I went in. You know, I remember one house in Snyder. You know, this kid did not want to work with me. He didn't want any counselors or any of that. And I went into his room, and you know, he was very reluctant to. His mom's like, sure, your room. And he's like, and we go in the room, and he's got a drum set, and he's got Green Day posters all over the wall. I played the drums in the 6th grade. Now, I was not great by any means, but I had enough knowledge to...
But it was something that you could connect with.
And then I said, oh, I love Green Day. And he's like, what? And, you know, he said to his mom, his birthday was the next day, and he said, she's not coming to my birthday party, is she? I was like, well, damn, kid.
I didn't want to come anyway.
Really? Probably nasty cake anyhow. But that was it. The moment that I could pull up a Green Day song in my head, and, you know, there was a connection.
Yeah.
That was in 2002.
Okay.
Today I'm his kid's godmother.
Oh, wow.
He actually is in a band. He got a record label and he tours all over the place. So I was able to catch one of his shows last year. You know what I mean?
Wow, yeah.
So like, literally because of a drum set and Green Day.
Yeah. You were able to make a lifelong connection with somebody and really impact their life in a positive way.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing. Not a lot of people can say that they've impacted people's lives like that.
So true. I'll tell you what, though. I think they've probably impacted mine more than I have theirs.
Oh, yeah?
Because this is weird that I was thinking about this morning. But there are certain kids who I've worked with over the years who've made me prove myself. Right? So I can say, oh, I want to help people and I want to, you know. But then every now and again there's that kid that's like, oh, yeah, we'll prove it.
Yeah.
And there was two girls. They were from Romania. They were adopted from Romania. If they walked in this room right now, they'd say, "Hey, Mom," and and we just moved like that. If you told my daughter that these were not her actual sisters, you'd have to fight her, right? But I met these two girls. They were adopted from Romania. They were actually in an orphanage in Romania. They both were found on the stairs of an orphanage, and they lived in an orphanage until they were 9 years old. An American family adopted them. They had to first learn what a family was. So they had to go and live with a Romanian family so they could understand family dynamics. So they did that for a year, and then they came to America. And they were here for a year, and the father died.
Oh my gosh.
And then the following year, the mother was diagnosed with MS. So she was wheelchair bound, and she couldn't, really care for them. So they became two very, very defiant, very disrespectful, rude little girls. They had no one to do anything. So my job sends me over and says, "I want you to go over and help this girl learn to clean her room." I said, "Okay, no problem. I'll go over there." And she was very much a little witch. So for about an hour, she had me sitting outside of her room because she was in the shower. So I said, "Listen, I'm getting paid either way, so we can either clean your room, or not." So she finally lets me in the room, and she was just rude. She had a sister, and every time I showed up for 6 months, the sister ran away from home.
Oh gosh.
If the mom put my name on the calendar, the sister was gone.
Oh my goodness.
And so I kind of kept showing up. And one day she goes, "Oh, my sister wants to know if she can come with us." And I said, "Your sister who?" She goes, "My sister so-and-so." And I said, "She didn't run away last night? Because she runs away every time I'm coming." She said, "No, she wants to come with us." So the short story is they had an attitude that this is just your job. And you're here because you get paid to be here.
Yeah. You don't
and as
really
soon as
care.
as soon as you're not, you're just gonna leave us like everyone else did. I'll never forget this. Everyone's always left us. You're gonna be no different.
That's so heartbreaking.
So I'm like, damn.
Like now I can't.
Can't even close your case out without feeling bad, And then I remember when I got pregnant with my daughter, and I took them out to lunch. "Hey girls, I got something to tell you." And I said, "Hey, I'm having a daughter. I'm having a kid." And they both got up and they walked out of the restaurant and left. And they were like, "Oh, we knew it. Now you got your own kids, so you definitely won't have time for us." And it was the weirdest thing in the world, but I could not turn away.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop. Like, I just could. I'm like, these girls have lost everybody they've ever known, like from the beginning of their lives. But that was in the early mid 2000s as well. To this day, those girls are my daughters.
Yeah.
If they need anything, if they get in trouble, they're calling me. One of them, she messaged me yesterday and said, I'm sorry I haven't talked to you in a while, but I lost my job and I was kind of embarrassed." And I'm like, "Girl, you do not have to be embarrassed. Like, I've literally gone through everything with you since you were 14 years old,
Yeah.
They're like 30 now. I'm like, you guys make me feel like an old lady, but just the fact that, those kids make you prove yourself. Are you really about this work?
Yeah.
Or is it just a job?
Yeah.
And they were the first baby that they ever held was my daughter.
Aww.
They were the first ones to actually babysit her. And I remember saying to her, "Remember when I told you I was having her? Y'all walked out of the restaurant." I was sitting in the restaurant looking like an idiot, like, "Did they just leave me?" But there's kids that make you prove it.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for those. I think for every time I attempt to help somebody or impact somebody, it heals me.
Yeah.
In certain ways. So it may be a little bit selfish, but I wouldn't want to do anything else.
Yeah. So, would you consider yourself a feminist, a womanist, or an advocate for social justice in any way? Why or why not?
I would probably consider myself more of a womanist, and definitely an advocate for social justice. Feminist, not so much, because I think the feminist movement was a white woman's movement, and didn't really account for black women and black womanhood, or any womanhood of people of color.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a woman before I'm anything else. So I've always somehow had to deal with social justice issues. I mean, if you're a black kid in America, you're gonna always deal with it in some way or another. Sometimes you don't always know you are.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want to live in a world where you think, no, because I got white friends and we're all great. You know, until somebody calls you a nigga, and
Yeah.
those white friends can't defend you because they don't know how, right? Um, so I've always kind of, my parents were kind of social justice people.
Okay.
So we owned a bar, but it was, I laughed because I said it was much more of a community center than like, you know, you wouldn't take a kid into a bar nowadays. People would look at you.
Yeah, they'd look at you sideways.
It was the most common thing in the world for people to bring their kids to my dad's bar. They pick the kids up from school, and then, you know, they'd come down, have a drink. The kids, we all be over here like drinking our little sodas and eating chips, and the adults would be over there, you know, doing adult stuff. Up until about 6 o'clock, it was very common to see kids in there.
Yeah.
At 6 o'clock, my dad knew like this is the time where people are getting off work and they're coming.
It's gonna get a little more rowdy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because before 6 o'clock, he couldn't even swear in there. My dad, if he heard someone swearing, he'd be like, "God damn it, don't you see these kids in there?" I'd be like, "Don't you?" But you know, but it was very much that environment until a certain space. But there was I lived through the crack era. I lived through the emergence of those things. I've lived through a time where I saw a very vibrant, working, middle class community um, disseminate into, you know, people don't have jobs and they've lost their children. And my mother's house was probably the unofficial foster care home. You know, if there was a parent who was on drugs or something like that, their kids were always at. You know, we'd pile up in twin beds. It was very common to be 4 kids in a twin bed, 3 kids in the bathtub at a time. You know what I mean? Because hot water didn't last all day.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those kind of situations. So there was also a lot of police brutality and police harassment and things like that going on. And so my parents were always standing up for the community in those ways, always trying to find ways to bring community together. So my grandfather, he was a minister. He was very much a social justice warrior in Ohio. He instituted a program throughout Ohio called Black Families for Black Children, which encouraged African Americans to become foster parents because a lot of children were in the system and they were going to different cultured homes and having very different experiences.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he thought it was very important that black children go into black homes. So he collaborated with a group of other churches, and they, you know, worked hard to get parents trained as foster parents, things like that. Is from my youngest memories, you know, we'd always go to Cleveland for Easter and for anything, honestly, because my grandparents were there. But he'd always do this huge Easter egg hunt. It was like this big football field, and he would do it for the kids who were in an orphanage. We would go there all the time. He'd do talent shows with them. He'd always do things with them. So it's always been a part of my life to like help and give back and stuff. And I remember this was long before the plastic Easter egg hunt eggs.
Yeah.
This is when you actually like boiled eggs all Saturday and colored them all Saturday and like real eggs, and then you had to go out and put on them. But he'd always get a plastic egg or two, and he'd put $50 in it, and he'd say to the grandkids, if you find this egg, put it back down. Like, let one of the foster kids get it. And I'd be like, yeah, right, if I find that egg,
it's mine.
going to the store. But see, that's why God never let me find the egg, because he knew my heart was not pure inside. But those things have just kind of always been just a part of my regular family life. And so at the current moment, I would say my social justice involvement is my daughter. She started high school this year.
Oh, okay.
She was in middle school last year. She played soccer, and it was her birthday, and she had a game on that day. And so I said, okay, well, we can't do anything on that day, so tell me where you want to go eat. We'll go to your favorite restaurant. She said, oh, I want to go to Olympia. I said, of course. So we go to that game. I happened to get to the game a little late because I accidentally pressed Tonawanda High School instead of North Tonawanda High School.
I've done that.
So I'm like, no, I know I've been here before. Like, this isn't right. So I get to the game about halftime, and I discover that there's I'm on the wrong side, right? So I see, oh, the Niagara Falls people are over there. So I go to the proper side. I hear the kids, And they're really, kids at a sports game. I know myself. Now, you guys are all too young to remember, but when there was the LaSalle and Niagara Falls High School basketball games, it was the biggest, rowdiest, loudest, like everybody in the city had to be there, um, kind of thing. So I know loud, rowdy kids at games. I was loud, rowdy kids. And so I'm kind of making jokes like, oh my God, those kids are so rowdy. And I see my daughter's coach come over to one of the NT staffers, and she says, "Can you ask those kids to cut it out over there? They're being really ridiculous." And he says, "Yeah, I know a bunch of those kids. I'll ask them to cut it out." Just by pure happen chance, the guy was right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So the coach walks away, and the guy sits on his phone and he starts scrolling on Facebook. Again, he just happened to be sitting in front of me, so I didn't know what she wanted or what have you. So she comes back again and she asks him, "Could you please go over and ask them to stop?" He said, "Yeah, I will." And he proceeded to continue to scroll Facebook. At the end of the game, I don't know if you guys know about Niagara Falls High School sports, but they're not traditionally known to have a great soccer team, right? In fact, they lost every game. But they had great coaches, right? So they'd lose and they'd come off the field like all happy. And I'm like, why are you so happy? Y'all just lost. And she'd say, well, yeah, but I had more positive touches this time and my defense was better. And, the coach would give them all this is the stuff you did great.
Optimistic.
Very much. And
Yeah.
then say, okay, well, now you need to work on these things. But she's coming off the field. She knows we're going to Olympia. You lose every damn game. You already knew NT was a great team. Why do you look sad? And I'm like, are you mad because y'all lost? Because y'all literally lose them all. And she goes, no, I'm not sad that we lost. She said, I'm sad because when we were playing, those kids in the stands were calling us niggers and making monkey sounds when we went by. And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, she says, our goalie ran off the field in tears. And she put the team like here and there. But every time any of us went up and down the field, they were calling us niggers and they were making monkey noises. And I'm like, so now it's coming back to me. That's what the coach was telling them to stop. Because I couldn't hear the words. I could just hear the rowdiness.
Yeah.
And I said, what did your coach say? She says, well, our coach said there's nothing we can do about it. I said, bullshit. There's always something that you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, well, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, let's start by writing a letter to the North Tonawanda School Board. Let them know how you felt. Like, let them know what happened and how it made you feel.
Mm-hmm.
She said, okay. So I honestly didn't think she would go do it. We went to Olympia. We had dinner. Happy birthday. Great. We came home. We were home about an hour. She comes downstairs with a piece of paper. And it is filled, every line, front and back. And she goes, and I read it. And I said, okay, I'll make sure the NT school board gets it.
Mm-hmm.
So it just so happened the next day was my day off. And I'm a court TV junkie, okay? And I never get to watch court TV because I'm always at work. So when I'm home, I just want to watch court TV. That's it. But I was tired. And I want to get a daytime nap because daytime nap is something special. I swear.
Oh, yeah, it is.
All the babies that don't want those daytime naps, I'm like,
I'll take them. Give them to me.
One day you won't ever be able to do that again. And it just bothered me that this coach spoke to the staffer, and the staffer just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
More so than them, what they were saying, I was more bothered that here's an adult trying to address it with another adult, and nothing's happening.
Yeah.
So I made a post about it on Facebook. And then my phone died. And so I was like, plugged that phone up, and I was like, I'm taking me a daytime nap. Like, I don't really care. I woke up 2 hours later, turned my phone on, and it was the Buffalo News. And I was like, he said, oh, we were just calling about the thing you posted on Twitter. I said, I don't have a Twitter. And he goes, well, somebody shared it on Twitter. And then the Gazette called. And long story short, my thing had gone viral. I thought, for all things that I would like to go viral,
right?
This is not, I was just getting that off my chest. But there were thousands upon thousands of comments from people saying, oh, that happens to us when we play North Tonawanda. Oh, it happened to our basketball team, our football team, you name the team at North Tonawanda.
Yeah.
Even Tonawanda called me to say, look, we will support you because we have the same issues with NT. Wow. So the school board members started to, like, you name it. I was getting calls from booster clubs and superintendents and mayors and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just so happened that our school board was meeting before NT's. So we went to our school board meeting first.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, thousands of people were responding and sharing this and making videos and you name it, and having that experience. There was a white woman who works at my job. She's in her 80s, and she said to me, "Samika, thanks for doing this, because when I was a kid, they did the same thing to us, and I'm thinking, who the hell is they and who's us? Because you look like them to me." And she says, "Well, we were Catholic, and they were Protestant, and so they were really mean and nasty to the Catholic kids. They'd beat us up, they'd spit on us, they would throw things at us."
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't even have imagined it from that standpoint.
Perspective, yeah.
Also knowing that NT was a sundown town, and just removed the signage within the last 2 years, that's crazy. So we went to our school board and we let them know this is what happened. I said to all these people that were all riled up, like, let's go to the school board meeting. And we got to the school board meeting, it was packed. And I was, here.
Oh, okay.
And I was just over the moon about it. Well, it turned out they were having the August graduations. So everybody was there for the August graduations. And as soon as they were done, everybody left. So it's like me and my daughter in the room. So she goes up and she reads her letter. And there were literal tears coming from our school board. And Mark Laurie said, and I said, we're going to go to NT's school board meeting and read this letter as well. And he said, and we're going to come with you. He said, and if they refuse to do anything about it, we will stop our teams from playing their teams. And we'll file a Title X complaint. And I was blown away.
Yeah.
And true to his word, he and the school board came with us to NT's meeting. Now, NT tried to write a note and say, okay, we're aware of what happened. We know. Thanks for letting us know. Goodbye.
Yeah.
We were like, no.
Like, no, you're going to listen to what I have to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then it became, they should expel those kids. And, you got a lawsuit. I'm never thinking about a lawsuit. Unless you are harming me, I'm not thinking about a lawsuit. But I also thought, this is on the heels of the top shooting. Mm-hmm. We expelled these kids. We're creating more top shooters.
Yeah.
Because if I already don't like black people, and now my education is interfered with because of you black people,
I'm just going to not like you even more.
I'm going to not like you even more.
Yeah.
And I said, this is the time to educate them, not expel them. And it wasn't the team per se, it was just the spectators and the crowd. And it was actually the team who helped us figure out who the kids were.
Yeah.
Who were making the racial epithets. So that was 2 years ago. But since then, every single month, we have brought NT students and Niagara Falls students together and have done racial healing work.
Oh, wow.
And I've been lucky enough to be able to facilitate it. We've done Underground Railroad Museum. We've done the North Tonawanda History Museum. We actually kind of got to the root of where this racial strife comes from in North Tonawanda. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because they tried to sort of fluff it around. And
they always do.
We ain't going to fluff it. I said, I'm sorry. We're not here for fluff.
Yeah.
And I don't work for NT and I don't work for Niagara Falls. So nobody can fire me.
Yeah.
I don't have to be careful about what I say.
Yeah.
And so in the beginning, the kids they felt like they were being forced to do something for photo ops.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not going to use us for da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, no, nobody's here to use you. I want you guys to learn.
Yeah.
It should not be the common thing that we're going to play NT, so somebody's going to be calling us all out of our names. That should not be commonplace.
No.
Why is that okay? Grand Island has a very similar problem. Newport has a very similar problem. Niagara Wheatfield has a very similar problem. Mm-hmm. This year, Niagara Wheatfield has now joined us with this racial healing
That's
work.
Great.
Newport and Grand Island also want to be involved, and they reached out to us.
Yeah,
we didn't
you
reach
didn't
out.
go out and seek them. Yeah,
we absolutely did not. But they know that these are real issues in their schools, and that they need to be addressed.
Yeah.
So I'm over the moon about it more than any. Like my daughter, sometimes she's a little bit embarrassed by it because she's sort of she didn't want to be the troublemaker. It was weird because after the news and all the newspapers and all that stuff, the black parents on the soccer team stopped talking to me. It was the weirdest thing ever. They'd whisper to me, I saw your news article. I shared it. Stuff like that. But I'm like, do you guys really have these hoop dreams for your kids that are so big that you're willing to let them sacrifice themselves? That you're willing to let them be degraded so they can be on somebody's football, basketball team? That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I'm grateful my kid's a little nerd and not, I have her do sports because I need her to do physically active stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she's got to track meet today.
It's not going to be her life.
It's not going to be your life. And I will certainly encourage all the other weird stuff that you want to do. I'm totally cool with it. But I'm not cool with letting you be disparaged.
Yeah.
And made to feel less than or, any of those kind of things.
Yeah.
To play a sport?
Absolutely not.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that's my sort of social justice work right now. Next week, if you guys are interested, I'm receiving an MLK Civil Rights Award.
Oh, wow. Where? Here?
At Bleneva Bond Elementary School.
Oh, okay.
I'll send you the information.
Yeah, absolutely send it to me.
But I certainly didn't do it with any hopes of that kind of stuff. I just like, okay, enough's enough. You know what I mean? Like, we've been doing this for way too long. We are in the 2000s when we thought the world would be long over, and we're still dealing with this kind of foolishness. Mm-hmm. So it went from the kids sort of being like, oh, God, we got to do this racial crap again, to now the kids are like, well, when are we coming again? Well, when are you guys coming again? When I walk in, there's hugs. And the kids in NT are way more receptive to it than the kids in Niagara Falls. Which is very interesting. But either way, everybody's learning from each other. Yeah. What has developed is relationships have developed. Yeah. And I think that's amazing. We started out, like, right when this was all going on, like, basketball season was coming in. So we did a luncheon with the basketball players from NT and the basketball players from Niagara Falls. Because if we just had lunch together, it's a little harder for you to call me a nigga on the field. Yeah. Because now you know me as a human, and I'm not just that black person. Yeah. It's a lot harder for me to disparage you if we literally just, got to know each other. Yeah. So it went from like, oh dear, we got to do this, to when are we doing it again? Mm-hmm. I can't wait until we all come back together. I love to see the NT kids and the Niagara Falls kids meet up, and I'm like, oh, hey, girl. Hugging. Yeah. Yeah. And, relationships are building. Yeah. A woman
made bonds out of love instead of hate.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was a woman who was involved early on. She was actually showing up to the meetings with me. And she said to me, well, do you think this is even having any impact? And I said, I don't know. And I may not know for a very long time. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean to stop it. It's
a generational thing, too.
It's absolutely.
Like, if we end the way that these, people in NT are thinking generationally, then these kids are going to take what they've learned and what they've instilled into their kids. And that's how change happens.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's work I'm proud to do. On a regular basis. I get really excited.
Oh, absolutely.
To be in those spaces, and the staff, and it's grown. It started off with one group of kids, and now they're bringing in middle and high school kids. So we'll see where it goes. But so far, so good. That's NT wonderful. Has been extremely amazing. Everybody kept saying they'll never sit down with you. They'll never talk to you. They'll never. They have, and they do consistently.
That's great. Yeah. I feel like you don't hear stories like that very often, especially like locally. Like, I mean, we all live here. I've never heard of this. Like, about this meeting, about the thing that happened in NT, and I live here.
We're alumni.
Yeah.
And if it's us, and you went to NFHS too.
So it's like, these stories aren't being, they're impactful, yes, but
why aren't we hearing?
Yeah, why aren't we hearing about it? This thing needs to be more amplified to the local community, which is a part of why we chose to do this project, is to get these kinds of stories more well known.
And it's crazy because I literally have reached out to every media outlet that contacted me when it was sensational. Yeah. To say, well, hey, here's the good part. Nobody's been like, oh,
Well, that's the thing, though, about, social justice, movements or change, is, they're real, performative a lot of the times. People, when Black Lives Matter started back up again during COVID, everyone was posting black squares on their Instagram, but, they're not actually doing anything for the cause. They're not educating themselves. They're not educating the people around them. It's all performative to make them feel good about themselves.
I just said this about the eclipse. I said, so you got all these people who have become scientists suddenly.
Yeah.
And there was no real eclipse because this wouldn't have happened. And I'm like, but you won't even go to a council meeting. You know what I mean? Like, shut up. You did all that research, but you won't even go vote for the school board election. You know what I mean? Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Stop it. But yeah, definitely not a performative thing. I think that most pictures that come from it are pictures that I take just because I'm just that person. I'm always in somebody's face with a camera.
Yeah.
But it's really about what's actually happening here. You know, what differences am I seeing in their personalities, in their communication with each other.
Yeah.
You know, just that kind of stuff. So for me, it was about showing my daughter, baby, if you want something to change, you have the power to change it.
Absolutely.
You know, Mr. Laurie was like, this is going to take some stamina. You're right. And 2 years strong, I'm still there.
Yeah.
Nobody pays me. There's no side, oh, we'll give you a stipend. I don't want any of that. I want these kids to genuinely get along.
Yeah.
Or
I
at
want to
least
see change.
Or at least respect each other enough to just be like, you know what, I don't like black people, so I'm going to go over here so I don't have to. I say my opinion is extremely unpopular. You can be as racist as you want. You don't have to like me because I'm black. That's fine. But what you also don't have to do is disparage me because of it.
Yeah.
You don't have the right there. You can not hire me because I'm black and I'll never know it. You can sit across from me and go, I'm not hiring this black ass person. You know what I'm saying? What you can't do is, put it out there and say, well, I'm not hiring you because you're black.
Yeah.
What we cannot ever legislate is morality. We cannot.
Yeah.
I can't morally make a law.
Yeah.
It's like abortion. You can make all the laws you want to ban abortion. You know what happens when a woman doesn't want to have a baby? She's not going to have it.
Yeah, she's not having that baby. Like, it's not happening.
It's just that simple. I don't care if you're in Texas, New York, Georgia, wherever. There are things that people can do, and there always will. So that you can't legislate, but what we can do is certainly educate and
trying to find common ground.
And find the common ground.
Yeah.
And sometimes the common ground is we're better off not dealing with each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that goes across race, age, sex,
sometimes
whatever it
even
is.
Family.
Heck yeah. Oh, honey, yes. That's a whole nother. that's a novel, but seriously, it's the truth.
I just want to talk a little bit about your work that you actually do here, like in the community center, like with like the kids and stuff like that.
Okay, so we do primarily we do after school and summer camp. Mm-hmm. After school is literally whenever there's school we're here. We usually close down second week of June because we don't get a lot of kids come in and kids are getting ready for the end of school and such. Mm-hmm. But other than that, we're pretty much packed with kids all the time. Our primary thing is childcare. That's our primary goal is childcare. Life changes for a parent when, school hours and work hours don't ever line up. And God forbid, I was a single mom. I had a little kid. It was really difficult I got to leave work at 3 o'clock to pick up my kid. Childcare is extremely expensive.
Extremely expensive.
And it just gets worse and worse by the year. You're getting a lot less people who are interested in childcare because the requirements are so stringent that they literally have regulated people out of the business. I said there was a while where you could drive down any street and you'd see a little sign in the yard that says, oh, Bunny Hop Daycare.
Yeah.
Susie Mae's Daycare, whatever. You don't see that anymore.
No.
Because they have over-regulated people so much that people are like, it's not even worth it anymore.
Yeah.
Not to mention the reimbursement rates from the county, they're not the same. So for me, it's important that we have a free space that parents can bring their kids to. Or know that their kids are there and feel safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
So that's my primary goal. My secondary goal is character development, right? Mm-hmm. We all say the very cliche, it takes a village to raise a child. And people say that and they think that, I don't know what they think, but it's really more than meets the eye when it comes to taking that village, right? Sometimes I say if there's a kid down the street from me, and I know this kid doesn't eat every day. I know mom's out partying or doing whatever she's doing. Maybe she's working, who knows? But she doesn't have time to be there to feed her kid. Now, I can talk about her really badly. I can say, girl, she don't take care of her kid. Mm-hmm. Them babies down there dirty and they hungry. Or I can just make an extra plate.
Yeah. You can make it
the village, right? So my mom lived with me for a while. And there was a group of kids, very likely middle school age kids. They were across the street, a few houses down. They were jumping on a trampoline. If you closed your eyes and didn't know where you were, you would swear you were in a bar or a very rowdy sports game because you heard every F word, S word, A word, P word, D word, you name it. And now my mom, she's fresh out of the hospital. She's like sitting on the porch getting some air, and these kids are just cursing like sailors. And so my mom and my sister, they're sitting there and they're just trashing these kids. And I'm like, listen, go talk to them.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm not going over there. So I walked across the street and I said, hey guys, y'all sound like y'all having so much fun over here. And they're like, oh, we're having fun. I said, I love to hear kids have fun. And I said, but there's some really little kids out here, and there's also some elderly people. And some of the language is a little bit offensive. So do you think I could keep it down a little bit? And then one little boy said, I'm trying to, but she keeps stepping on my balls. And so the other kid says, didn't she just ask you to speak respectfully? That's not respectfully.
Yeah.
They calmed it down. They were quiet. So the next day I come home from work and my mom's like, do you remember those kids that were on the trampoline the other day? She said, they stopped by here today to ask me if I needed anything from the store.
Oh, wow.
I said, see?
Just the smallest little thing.
Just show them a little bit of respect and then they'll show it right back. Not always. I've been called out of my name and FUs, but it happens way less frequently than, I could probably count it on a hand. Because I believe in respecting you, and then therefore you'll give it back to me. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but more often than not it does. So for me, it's about like building strong characters. Who are you? What are you about? Are you a good person because of or in spite of? My daughter told me, she said, Mom, I'm gay. I said, are you going to be a decent human being? Because I don't care what you are or what you engage in. I care who your character is. So if you got a good, solid character, that's important. It's important for me that these kids learn how to say hello and goodbye and look at you and, be able to hold a conversation. Those things matter the most to me. So I'm consistently reminding my staff, every moment is a teachable moment and use it as such. And, make sure that they know who they are. Make sure they understand their emotions.
Yeah.
Make sure they can say, this is how I feel, as opposed to just crying or hitting or throwing or something like that. And then my third goal is to expand their worldview.
Okay.
Know that there's so much more to our city, to our community, to our world than just what we see outside of our doors, right? So this, we just came back from a camping trip.
Yeah.
At Fonsstock State Park, which is about 50 miles outside of New York City. 20 kids. Most had never been in any kind of wildlife environment. They certainly had not been camping. It's so funny because the little boy was just saying it today. He kept saying, "We in the wilderness." He just kept going on. But just to have those skills, we work very closely with the state parks education departments. So they come in and they teach them about whatever wildlife may be there, how to identify animal tracks, how to build a shelter if you're out here and you're caught out here somewhere. How do you start a fire? Just very basic life skills, but it expands their worldview. So on our camping trip, it rained every day.
Oh no!
Every day. And there was on the last day we were going to take a hike. It was about an hour and a half hike, and they're like, "We don't want to do this. It's cold. It's raining." And believe me, I didn't want to do it either.
Yeah.
Right? You know how hard it is to encourage somebody else when you don't feel encouraged? Because I'm like, I can go back in this cabin and lay it down for an hour and a half, but you push through it because again, that's when the kids make you prove who you are. Like, is this just something you want to talk about? So I'm like, I told them, listen, I'm the oldest person at this table. If I can do an hour and a half hike, you can do it too. Right? And so they did it. And they had a great time. They climbed through caves. They got to climb up a mountain and see the New York City skyline.
Oh, wow.
They got to do all this really cool stuff.
That they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Absolutely not. So those things are important. It's important. When I moved back home, I was on the borderline of misery because I had bought this story that everybody says about Niagara Falls. Oh, there's nothing to do here. Oh, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. when I lived in New York, you know, I lived in Brooklyn, and a lot of the kids I worked with, you know, were from Brooklyn or the Bronx or wherever. And they would always say to me, if I could just get out of New York City, I'll be okay. And I would say to them, do you know how many kids think if they could just get to New York City, they'll be okay?
Yep.
But it's such a mindset.
Almost
Because-
every person I know says that about Niagara Falls.
It's such a mindset thing because kids live in Brooklyn and go, I've never been to Manhattan. And I'm like, it's literally 3 stops away on the train.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even got to pay nothing extra. You just keep sitting down. That's it. You don't have to. You don't have to get up. You don't have to do anything. Just keep sitting, and you will end up in Manhattan, and then you'll end up in Harlem, and then
Yeah.
like, so it's important. When I came back here, I had to look at it through new eyes, or else I would have been just a very miserable person.
Yeah.
So I started trying to see, like, what's the good stuff here?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are the things that created this person that I am? Which is, I think I'm a decent human. So, like, what were the things that created that? As kids, we'd go down to the falls and, you know, we'd run around and play and take our shoes off and put our feet in the water and, you know, do all that kind of cool stuff. Go to the Rainbow Mall, and those were really good things. So I started trying to learn more about the city's history and what actually was still here. I learned about the Niagara movement in New York City while I was taking a Harlem Renaissance class. And I said, Niagara? Like, and my professor goes, like, as in where you're from? And I felt so stupid in that moment because I'd never heard of the Niagara movement. Had no idea that the roots of the NAACP started here. Had no idea about the Harriet Tubman stuff. Like, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Who was there to teach us?
Yeah.
Nobody. And so the more stuff I started to learn, I worked at the NAC, and so it's just full of history there.
Oh, yeah.
The more I learned, the more, like, of a sense of pride that I developed. And so I'm like, I want to make sure that these kids have that same sense of pride. Even if you move away, you know, I want you to look back on your life here with some fondness, with some people.
Be proud that you come from here.
Be proud.
Yeah.
I was at a conference once, and half the people there were from Texas. And every single person that I said, how do you like Texas? They all said, oh, I love it. And it was just the weirdest thing because you will never hear that here.
Yeah.
And so I want kids to feel like I love this community that created me. You know, I know without the environments, the people, the experiences, I would totally not be who I am today.
Yeah.
So for all of it, I'm grateful. Everybody wasn't, you know, a pretty, perfect role model. Like I said, my parents owned the bar. My grandparents were, you know, they owned the church. My parents owned the bar. So I met everybody at every walk of life, you know, that you can possibly imagine. And I learned from every last one of them.
Yeah.
And so those 3 things are what's important. A space for parents to have to bring their kids for free, if, you know, possible. And I'm not a toxic charity person. Like, I don't believe everything should be free.
Yeah.
You know, but in this case,
some things should be.
This is almost a right, almost, you know.
Yeah.
There's 2 little boys, and forgive me because I talk forever. There's 2 little boys that used to show up at our events, right? We do any event we do, these 2 little boys will show up. They were 5 years old. Never saw an adult with them. Never spoke to a parent. They'd come to our events and they'd be here for 3 or 4 hours. Nobody ever came looking for them.
Oh my.
They'd go home with bags of produce. Nobody came to be like, where'd they get this bags of produce from? You know, they'd be like struggling across the street.
5 years old or something?
5 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, how'd you know we were doing something over here? And they said, because we heard the music. Or we saw this. Or, you know.
Yeah.
So one day we found out who their parents were. They both had very young moms who weren't around. So they were out here with grandparents. But the grandparents were also taking care of smaller kids. So they were in the house with the smaller ones. It was just crazy. So the grandparents actually signed them up for programming. But I said to myself, if I have to charge, these kids won't be here.
Yeah.
Grandma can't afford it. It's not a priority for mom. They won't be here. And they'll just be roaming around somewhere. And I don't want
getting
them
into God knows what.
These are 2 of the most independent little grown-up 5-year-olds you've ever met.
5 years old is crazy.
They were like detectives. We did teen nights here in the summer. And the little boy goes, we knew you were doing something because we heard the music. And then we came to the door, we smelled the popcorn. What you guys doing in there? So we're doing something for teenagers. well, can't we just come in? We'll be teenagers one day. I said,
We'll be teenagers.
you can come one day when you're a teenager. But I just know that those babies, they won't be here if somebody had to pay.
Yeah.
Even if it was a minimal amount of money. So that's super important for me.
Yeah.
Our funding was just up for, on the chopping block.
Like renewal?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The community development decided they weren't going to give us money this year.
Oh, no.
And I said, now I need you to tell me a little bit better why we can't get this money, because we provide a great service for the entire community. It's not just Packard Court, it's George Jones as well. We're sister sites. And we literally cover each end of town. Mm-hmm. Years ago, I remember speaking at City Hall, advocating for money for the NAC. And I remember one of the council people saying to me, it is not the council's job, it's not the city's job to provide things for kids to do. And I was very offended. And then he said, it's the city's job to provide the infrastructure for those things to be done. Okay, great. So then community development funds should go to spaces that supports that infrastructure. Yeah. And to me, that's the truest sign of it doing so. Mm-hmm. So for 20 some odd years, we've been running these programs super successfully. So why do we not get money? Yeah. And I said, well, tell me what we could have done on our grant application to make it better. And they were like, yeah, go to the city council meeting. So we did. With 2 busloads of kids, about 12 or 13 grandparents and parents, and our staff, and then community members who just came. The amazing part of the random community members who came, they don't even have kids who attend here. Their kids had at some point attended here, but they're adults now or whatever. And so, tell us why we don't deserve this money. So not to say way too much, but I think it was a personal thing. It was somebody who didn't like somebody else, and so. But we don't make kids suffer because of that. How dare us? No, absolutely not. We don't make families suffer because of that. So, yeah. As of Wednesday, we should be getting our funding. Very good. So hopefully. Very good. If not, we'll be back down there with busloads of kids again. Well, you let us know. We'll all be there too. I appreciate it, for sure. Absolutely. Bring all my NU friends. That would be awesome. I'm like, listen, I'm not afraid of these chambers. I've been in them many, many times. Yeah. So. It's just important. I think cities can't do everything, but what they can do, they should do, and they should do it well. Mm-hmm. When it comes to our youth, there's just no excuse. We were all youth at some point. Yeah. And they were all youth at some point. Mm-hmm. So who do we want to raise? Angry little citizens, or do we want to raise productive people? Well-rounded, educated people who are going to make good decisions in life. Absolutely. Yeah. Who can say, because as a kid, I had this resource. Now I can go on and do this. Mm-hmm. Now I have the ability to do this. I don't ever want kids to be scared of, the political process or any of those things. We get very nervous about those things, but those people literally work for us. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not the other way around. It's really not. Yeah. We got to watch, me and a few kids, we got to watch the eclipse with the governor the other day. Oh, wow. I want y'all to know that these people are accessible to you. Yeah. And they are here for your good, and you have to hold them to it. They're not big, scary, better than you. Absolutely not. Figures, no. I mean, especially Nancy Hochul. She's like this big. I was like, this teeny tiny little lady. She knew about our camping trip, which kind of blew me away a bit. And she's telling them, how she makes s'mores. Oh. And it was the biggest fat girl s'more I've ever heard of in my life. I thought, who is this tiny woman with a fat lady living inside of her? Because she put so much on the s'mores. Even the kids were like, "Yeah, that's too much." She's like, "I don't use a graham cracker. I use a chocolate chip cookie, and then I use some Reese's and Twix and marshmallows." And she's like, "And then I top it off with a brownie." I'm like, "Who are you?"
Sounds good.
How are you this big? It's hilarious. They just sent me the picture. And she's standing there and she's like, I'm like, yeah, that's her telling us about her s'mores. But, they got to talk to the mayor. They got to talk to, to know, this is, you are a part of this process. Mm-hmm. It is not outside of you, you know? So that's what's important for me, that these kids understand, hey, have a sense of pride in your city and know that it's yours, that those people work for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to bow to them. They literally have to bow to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want them to know they have power and to use it.
Yeah. I just have one final question and then we can wrap it up.
Okay.
We've kind of touched on a little bit on how, what makes positive change in a community, but what specifically could students of Niagara University do to make the community a better place?
Get out in it. Show up. Literally, that's the biggest thing. It's just the showing up. Every year, New Op comes with a group of kids, and everybody's enthusiastic, and everybody wants to volunteer and help, and then it doesn't always turn into that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not a bad thing, because trust me, I get it. I know college is crazy, and life gets nuts. But every now and again, someone will show up, and the kids are over the moon about it, because they don't forget.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll be doing a bike rodeo or something like that, and a few kids from NU will pop up. And, it does my heart amazingly well. But I know that nothing like the real life of it. School is school, and it's great to have a degree and all those things. But real life hits you real hard.
Mm-hmm.
And none of that stuff matters at all anymore.
Yeah.
At NYU, I was a part of the gospel choir, and we would always go to, shelters and feed the homeless and stuff like that. That's probably where I got the most of my education.
Yeah.
In those shelters.
Your real life experiences.
Mm-hmm. I remember a guy going, he's like, oh, what school are you guys from? We were like, oh, we're from NYU. Think we're all fancy. He's like, I went to NYU. We're like, what?
Yeah.
What you mean, Willis? Because, you live here now. How? And, he sat down with us and told us his story. And, yeah, he graduated and he did all that. And he had a big head and he thought that he could just kind of live life how he wanted and, live on the edge of stuff. Live on the edge of doing heroin and then going to my office job in the morning. And eventually one of them catches up with you.
Caught up with you.
So that was the most important part. But just getting out here, finding a niche and working with it. You know what I mean? There are a lot of, sadly in a community like this, it's a very depressed community.
Yeah.
The biggest thing you battle in this community is the mentality of the people. I have sat in countless community meetings where people say, we need a community center. And I go, do you know you're sitting in one? Literally the name outside on the building says community center.
Yeah.
They go to door shows and say the same thing. And so having to help people understand this is not the era that we grew up in, where we could, go to a community center on any given day and just go in and play basketball or do whatever.
Yeah.
Because of how society is now.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a very litigious society, and if a kid scrapes their knee, their parents want to own the building. And it sucks. I can remember scraping my knee and my mother going, oh, that's what you get. You won't do that shit no more.
Yeah.
Right?
You live and you learn.
Now it's like, you scraped your knee. Well, someone must not have been watching you. Oh, well, I'm going to call a lawyer. And it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I can't just open my doors to anybody. Now I do got to know who your parents are, and I do got to know where
you have to sign
from.
waivers.
Somebody's got to sign.
You have to do all these things. Yeah.
The other community center used to open up for open gym for adults.
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 nights a week, any adults could come in and play. One day they're playing for about 2 hours. One guy slips and falls. Hurts his knee, he says. He said there was water on the floor. Now, we have no leaks in our ceiling, and you guys have been playing grown men have been playing basketball for 2 hours. So y'all sweating and dripping, and if there was actual water, it came from y'all.
Yeah.
It come from us.
Yeah.
And if it did come from us, how the hell did you manage to get around it for 2 hours before, oops, now I fell in the water.
Yeah.
So then he sues us. And he wins. Because that's the society we live in. And then our insurance shoots through the roof.
Yeah.
And people don't, it's like when people steal stuff, oh, they got insurance. Yeah, they do. But just like our car insurance, it rises when things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't get it. People want to be like, well, I just want to come in there and play basketball. Okay, well, you got to fill out some paperwork and may cost you a few bucks and what have you. And people lose their mind. We don't have community centers. We don't have this.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, when I moved back here in 2001, there was the Niagara Community Center on Center Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that people, if you listen to people in this community, you think it was a golden palace, right? Now, I don't know. I'll tell you how it started. It started because after World War II, and the GI Bill was out, black soldiers couldn't go to the white establishment to get their GI benefits. So if you wanted to buy a house or if you wanted to go to school, you couldn't go there and get the help. And so a group of affluent black people got together. They opened up a little building. It actually started on Erie Avenue, which is on this side of town. And they said, okay, we're going to make this accessible for returning veterans so that they can get their GI benefits. And then it morphed and it grew and it grew. And then eventually they bought the property on Center Avenue and made it a community center. Now, it offered a lot of great things. Pantries and stuff for the elderly and you name it. When I was coming up, which was in the 90s, it was a place to go to hang out. You went there because you knew all the boys were going there, right? Like, we weren't going there to learn how to sew and to pay taxes. We were going there because the boys were there. And I say this all the time. If there's a basketball court, there's going to be the boys and there's going to be the girls because they're looking for the boys to be looking for them. And that's what it was. So, I move away, I come back. I came back home and I remember going there and I was so excited because I had learned all this stuff in New York City. And I had all these ideas that I wanted to bring back home. And I'll never forget the woman who worked there. Her name was, I won't say her name. But she was very much a pillar in the community. But the center was completely empty. Not a single soul in there, just her. And I said to her, I was all excited. I was like, yeah, because I lived in New York and I was doing this and da-da-da-da-da. I'll never forget. She did just like this. Scooped her chair back, crossed her leg. Sorry, I'm fat. Crossed her leg, lit a cigarette, and said to me, well, I don't know what you want to do, but I hope you're not talking about marching and stuff, because my days of doing that stuff is over. And I was like, I didn't say nothing about marching. I was talking about, like, programs for the kids.
Yeah.
But I understood that what I later understood is this woman was here all alone, trying to maintain this place with no assistance from anybody. So for all the people that go on and on, like, we need that center, where were you guys at when Miss Glenda needed your help?
Yeah.
Where were you guys when nobody was there to fix a burst pipe, to change a light bulb, because you guys were all around.
Yeah.
And so then there started to be all these meetings. Oh, let's save it. And so I can post a meeting right now and say, we need a community center. 500 people will show up. And then I'll say, okay, this is what I need everybody to do. Then 200 people are going to show up. And then I'm going to say, okay, I need everybody to come back next week and tell me what you all did. 3 people are going to show up. Right? So part of what I do is learning how to look past that. Because now I feel like, well, if 3 people showed up, then we're the 4 that's meant to do.
Yeah.
Everything ain't everybody's thing to do. Right? So we don't all have the same mission. We don't all have the same calling. And shame on me. I used to get mad at people because they didn't have my emotion.
Yeah.
I'd be like, this just happened. How don't you feel this? And then now I'm aggravated for no damn reason because they still don't feel it. Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes God just shuts me down and says, no. That's not what I gave them to do. It's what I gave you to do. Because trust me, this whole NT thing, it would have been great to go and say what I had to say and now schools take over and make it right.
But if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself.
You got to do it yourself. Or at least be at the table so that you know what the ingredients are. So for me, that was like really, really key. Just getting out there and doing it. Everything that I've ever done, I never knew how to do. Never once. For 7 years, I hosted a hip-hop festival in this city.
Oh, really?
For 7 years. I know nothing about hosting no festivals. Nothing. I'm flying in celebrities. I know nothing about it. Every year I started with $0. And it always cost me between $8,000 and $10,000 to put it on. At the end of the festival, it was paid for somehow or some way. So it was just a matter of like asking questions and figuring it out. People are going to give you the runarounds. Be willing to run around. Have that extra energy. I feel for your generation because you guys do have social media, and social media can give you the notion that you're doing something, and you're not.
Yeah.
That like that, put those boots on the ground is where it actually matters.
Yeah.
Like, not, my daughter's like, Mom, I want to be an engineer and an astronaut and a model and a fashion designer. I'm like, so do it. Do all of it.
Yeah.
Because who the hell is to tell you that you can't? There's no reason that we have to do one thing. I don't know if you know Saladin.
Yeah.
Saladine's daughter, she's in South Africa trying to find a cure for the Ebola virus.
Yeah.
And then she's a model. You know what I mean? Like, you can do all of it, and you don't have to let people tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
Our community is very depressed. So I think NU kids can come out and say, hey, you know what? I see this beauty here. Because sometimes we don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with this program. It's called, what's it called? Something Works. What it is groups of kids from various churches throughout the country, mostly in the Midwest. They come here every summer and they look for projects to do around people's homes, churches, wherever. They'll come and they'll, clean out your basement, or they'll paint your front porch, and so these kids would come and do projects with us, and then we'd have a big picnic for them. And they would sit and talk about all the cool things that were here. And our kids would be like, what? Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, you think that's cool? Absolutely. Niagara Falls is the most beautiful thing in the world.
Well, we take it for granted.
For granted.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, we were at the Cave of the Winds the other day. You guys on the Cave of the Winds?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, I got free passes if you haven't. But we were at the Cave of the Winds. And I told the kids, I said, just listen. Like, just listen around you. Like, see how many different accents and languages you pick up.
Mm-hmm.
You guys don't know, but you live in one of the most desired places in the world for people to come. And it belongs to you. It's yours.
Yeah.
And that's just so key to help them sometimes see that maybe I thought this was ugly, but maybe it's actually kind of cute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the best thing that NU kids can do. Get out here, and whatever you learn here, wherever you take it, it's going to be useful to you.
Yeah.
This is a very unique community, and I say that to people all the time. All of America is small towns.
Yeah.
All of America is made up of teeny tiny little towns. You got like 20 major cities. After that, it's cows and corn. You know what I mean? That's it. And I think every one of those little communities has a very unique makeup.
Mm-hmm.
And I think understanding that will take you so far.
Yeah.
Because then you go, I always laugh at people who come here and they're like the great hope and they're going to change this whole city. Well, I know what's wrong with y'all. Y'all need this. And I'm just sort of like, okay, rock out then. Because if you're not willing to get to know us as a community and understand how we interact with one another,
Mm-hmm.
understand those spaces and people who are sacred to us, if you don't have that understanding, you're kind of coming into a situation extremely blind.
Yeah.
And asking for failure. I go to communities and I try to learn the people there.
Yeah.
Like, who are the names that pop out? Who are the families that pop out? What are the places that pop out? I don't care if it was a skating. We went skating, in my day, there was a skating rink on 11th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was the thing. So you listen for those kinds of things that makes a community tick. Now I can appeal to you because I have a better understanding of you.
Yeah.
I couldn't possibly come to your house and be like, oh, you need to arrange this like this, and this should be set like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to do what works best for you. And I have to respect that.
Yeah.
In your space.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the most important thing. Listen and learn. People love to talk. Listen, look at me. But we love to talk about our experiences, and we love to talk about the things that make us better people.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the greatest thing that they could possibly do. Just get out here. Just be involved. More than the parties. But, come to community events.
Yeah.
Go to, church events. Even if I'm not a churchy person. I grew up churchy. I'm not a churchy person. But I'll go to certain events because you're going to be exposed to different segments of people.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to the same old people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a girl right now. She's trying to do we used to have a thing called the Black Experience when I was a kid. Where the casino parking lot is now, the Eden Lackley Plaza was what it was called. It was a huge African American festival. The guy, I feel like the old lady when I talk to y'all, but so BET used to have a video show, And the guy who hosted the video show, his name was Donnie Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come every year to Niagara Falls and host our Black Experience.
Oh wow.
And it was a huge cultural festival. People would come from all over the country to be at this cultural festival. So you'd have African dancers and drummers, you'd have break dancers, you'd have musical guests, you'd have, arts and crafts and just vendors and just a whole bunch of stuff. And so this girl said, she came here the other day, she said, I want to bring it back. Well, by the time she was around, it was no longer that. It was just like a big old talent show.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, well, I want to bring that back because it was so important. And I said, why are you bringing that back? Or are you trying to bring the whole thing back?
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, well, I don't really know the whole thing. So I'm like, okay, talk to these people. Because those people who put that together, they're still alive. And they'll share that information with you.
Yeah.
So she had she posted it on Facebook and everybody was excited. Oh, yeah, let's bring it back. She says, great, I'm having a meeting on Tuesday. And then she posted, I've been here for 40 minutes and nobody showed up with it. And I'm like, the very next post that I saw was, it said something about it doesn't matter, like the people who show up are the people that are meant to show up. I think maybe 1 or 2 people showed up. And she was so frustrated. I said, so you take those 1 or 2 people and you grow from there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't let that little piece discourage you. You got to keep going. Now, this girl has a bad attitude, okay? She literally needs an attitude adjustment. She does. I wish I was a little closer to her because I'd help her adjust it. I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean I would say to her, like her children come here and they're the sweetest little kids you ever met. And I'm just like, oh God. So I'm talking to her and I said, listen, put on a smile sometimes. Like it's okay to put on a smile and ask questions. Because and make sure you're asking the right people. Because if you ask a bunch of people that don't know like you don't know, you're going to be 10 times more frustrated.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm hoping that, I keep trying to encourage her on the back end. Because on the front end, I'll probably curse at her. Like, girl, this is not going to happen for you. But on the back end, I know that frustration. I know that, like, being around people who've only been around certain things, so they can't help you expand that view a little bit. They can't help you to say, you know what, let's go talk to the mayor and know that you actually can.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a crapshoot what you might get in there, but you can still get in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's about it.
All right. I don't think I have any more questions. That was great. Thank you so much
You are so very
for sharing all of your wisdom and wise words.